Well, our speaker tonight is Deborah Daniels. I don't know if you can see the beautiful lady next to me on my screen, but I don't know where she is on yours. And Deb happens to be a dear friend. Deb's a retired middle school teacher from Crystal River Middle School in the Citrus County School District. As a teacher, she was an excellent language arts teacher, but she was heavily involved with her professional organization. She was a union site leader and a legislative liaison. And then she went and retired, but in her retirement, she's developed even more experience with the legislative process through her work as legislative liaison for various civic and community organizations. Always the teacher, Deb has taught many civic-minded voters the details of how the Florida Legislature is organized, how they pass laws, and the many steps that occur between a bill's proposal and its final outcome. Because she'll teach us, they don't always pass. They don't always make it out of committee. So she may even give us a quiz. Equally important is Deb's emphasis on how citizens can get involved and interact with their local and state legislators. In 2022, Deb ran for the Citrus County District 5 seat on the Citrus School Board, but she wasn't successful. But she continues to advocate for public education, our teachers, our students, and public schools in general. Deb is also a past vice president and current member of the Citrus chapter of the Florida Native Plant Society. And she works to protect and preserve Florida's natural environment. So, I'd like to thank Deb for coming tonight. And if you've just joined us, yes, we're recording. We'd like everybody to mute while Deb is talking, and we're going to type our questions in the chat, and then Deb will be able to answer them at the end. Are we ready?
Yeah, I am going to share screen. So make sure that works. All right, so you should see on your screen Florida Legislature structure and process. Okay, good. I appreciate you for having me tonight. I'm excited to share what I know. A lot of this may be review for many of you, but I think maybe you might be able to take some suggestions from me on how to advocate and be a part of the system. I know this sounds like 101, Civics 101, but just to remind you, the branches, the three branches are the executive, judicial, and of course the legislative. I do want to point out that the executive branch includes governor, lieutenant governor, commissioner of agriculture, attorney general, chief financial officer, and several other administrative agency. And I do want to remark that they are all, at this point in time in this election series, they are all Republican. We, of course, have our judicial branch that is divided into first the Florida Supreme Court, then we have the 5 district courts of appeal, and then we have the 2 forms of trial courts, which are circuit and county. But what we want to focus on tonight is the legislative branch. And so that's where we're going to start. Just reminding you, we have the 2 chambers or 2 floors. We have the Florida Senate and we have the Florida House of Representatives. In this branch has been Republican controlled since 1998. That's over a quarter of a century. It is bicameral. The upper chamber, we call the upper chamber the Senate. We have 40 members. And then, of course, we have the lower chamber, the House of Representatives, that has 120 members. And our legislation regular session is only 60 days. It's a part-time rulemaking body here in the state of Florida. Not to say that they are not working or doing what they need to do or working in their offices, but the actual regular session is only 60 days. So first off, I want to talk to you about our mandates. From our Florida Constitution, our legislators all can only, they have term limits, can only be there 8 years. It's different for the House. House members serve 2-year terms, and they are limited to 4 terms, 8 years. Senators serve 4-year terms and are limited to 2 terms. Sessions begin in January during even years and in March in odd years. The 2025 regular session this year, 2025, will be starting March 4th, and I'm talking regular session, and it goes through May 2nd. But we need to understand that we also have interim committee meetings, and they started the week of December 9th. We also need to address the idea that we've had a special, and that started on January 27th, and that was called for by DeSantis. That session opened on the 27th. We call it Session A because it quickly shut down, and Session B was called by Albritton and Perez. So they had their own special session. We'll talk about that in a few minutes too. April 22nd is a date you need to remember. That's the last day for any of the regularly scheduled committee meetings. And that's important because you need to understand the importance of those committee meetings. Here they are. Our Senate is Ben Albritton, 40 members, 28 Republican members, and 12 Democrat members. Daniel Perez is the Speaker of the House of Representatives. In that House of Representatives, we have 120 members, 86 Republicans, 33 Dems, and probably somebody's going to call me out and say the math, but there is a vacancy. And so that's why it adds up to 119. I want to tell you how important the Senate President and Speaker of the House are. They are very powerful. They are elected by the majority of the members. They are the people that will appoint the committee chairs. These committees that we are going to talk about tonight, they have already appointed the heads of those chairs. They are the ones that refer bills to the committees, to go through the committees and have their workshops and their discussions. And they work with the committee chairs to decide if a bill is even going to get a hearing. I know that Senator Albritton has said that he is not crazy about our governor's push for open carry laws in the state of Florida. So with that said, he may not push any kind of open carry laws through to committee. If they don't go through committee, they don't get to the floor for a vote. Also on the House, Speaker of the House, House Representative Perez is not really crazy about restricting petition drives, citizen petition drives. He believes he needs to hear the voices of his constituents. So he's not crazy about our governor's push for making it harder to do those petition drives. So these are powerful men. On the Democratic side, we also have our leaders. They are the Senate Minority Leader, who is Senator Jason Pizzo. He's somebody that you might want to learn a little bit more about because he may be running for governor. And we also have House Minority Leader Fentrice Driscoll. And these are, of course, the minority leaders in the Senate and the House. So let's talk about those interim committees.
Okay,
So
let's go. Yes, you are. Mommy made us.
Ruthie Berg, you got mute. So December 2024 week of the December 9th, that's when these started coming together. They're in Tallahassee. They were electing those, the Senate president and the House Speaker. They were then in January. They were had 2 weeks in January, and they were not scheduled for any meetings the week of the 27th, but that's when the governor called a special session, and they had to go back and they had to have a regular session. And now we are in February. 2 weeks in February that these committees are going to be meeting, and then of course they will go into March 4th through May 2nd for the regular session. So how does this look and how does it work? So the bills are introduced, and they can be introduced by a legislator, a committee, or a subcommittee. So the committees themselves that I've just been talking about can introduce a bill, or even a subcommittee of those committees. House bills are odd number, and they are HB and the number. Senate bills are even numbers, and they are identified as SB, even numbers. And the goal in these committees is to have a companion bill. And these companion bills then will allow bills to go through both bodies to move through that committee process at the same time, so that they can be, there has to be they have to be the same. And before that can go to the floor for a vote during session. House members are 7 bills. As a main sponsor, they can co-sponsor others, but for them to file a bill at House, they only get 7. However, the Senate members can sponsor an unlimited amount of bills. So let's take a look where we start with the idea. Of course, the ideas come from think tanks and so forth. Drawn up, they are drafted. As I said, by a legislator or a committee. Then the bill is filed. It then goes to those 2 powerful guys, the president of the Senate or the Speaker of the House, and they refer them to 2 or 3 committees. And so these committees are going to listen to these bills, and they're going to discuss the bills, and they go to these committee hearings. And at these committee hearings, they take public input. And these committees hear people who come to these committee workshops. People can go in and I support the bill, I oppose the bill, say why. And one thing to really understand is if citizens put enough feedback, their legislator, bill a bill. It's committees. If it does not get through the Senate side in the committees, or it doesn't get through the House side on these committees, it dies. It does not get to the floor for a vote. And this is the part that is really important for you to know, that we citizens, while they're in committee, and say why we support or why we bill. Now, once it goes through these, goes through the House, it goes through the Senate, it then goes to the House or the Senate floor for a vote. And if it passes in the Senate, it has to go to the House. And if it passes in the House, it goes to the Senate. And once it is all copacetic, it's voted on, passed, and then sent to the governor. Mm-hmm. Types of bills. Now, you're going to see a lot of types of bills and a lot in your news. You're going to see that. And as I said, HB, House bill, Senate bill, SB, that's regular legislation. But we also have House joint resolution bills and Senate joint resolution bills. And these are bills that are proposed to the state constitutional amendment. An example, HJR 31 was the partisan election for members of district school boards that was presented and passed 12/5/23 by Republican Roach. It was filed, and it did make it onto the floor. It was voted on, and it was put on our ballot. It didn't pass, but that's what it looks like when a state constitutional amendment is proposed by either the House or the Senate. We have resolutions, and these are nothing with teeth in them. They're not real laws. They are expressions of approval or recognition. We have House memorials and Senate memorials, and these are voicing concerns or indicating opinions that the Florida legislators want to happen at the national U.S. Congress level. And again, it's just voicing their opinion. House concurrent resolutions and Senate concurrent resolutions, these are voice rejection or ratification of amendments to the U.S. Constitution. So you're seeing that there's a lot of different, and I know that's all a lot of information, but that's why there's different introductions to the numbered bills. The Republican Party controls 2/3 of the votes in both chambers of the state legislature. That gives them something we call a supermajority. Holding a supermajority will put Republicans in near total control of debate in the legislature. And it minimizes the opposition's party ability to change any of the rules of debate. And that goes true if it were a Democratic controlled. It's called a supermajority, and they definitely control what happens. So here's what we do when we track bills. The Florida Senate has this website, and what you can do, this is the Senate. You can see Old Britain there in this picture. You can go up here to the tab at the top that says bill, and you can put in the number of the bill that you want to know more information about. You can find your senators, you can find committees, and you can see things about session. Here's what I want to share with you is your tracker. If you want to track a bill on your own, you would set up an account and give your information, and then you put in what bills you want to track, and you will be emailed as often as you want. You can say every hour or every day or every week, updates on the bill that you're following. It's in committee now. It passed in committee. It's moving on to the second committee. It passed in that committee. It's moving on to the third, or that's past third committee and it's moving on to the House. All that information is here. Same with House of Representatives. There is Daniel Perez. He is the Speaker of the House. Again, you can see at the top, you have your bill number. You can go in to look at the actual text of the bill. You can, we have a tracker here as well, where you can go in, you have to create an account, and you can have those updates sent to your email box, and you will be able to follow that bill as it moves through committees and gets to the House, if it gets to the House. Also, the Florida Channel. The Florida Channel's programs, this is where you can watch these committees. You can watch what's happening on the floor. And all these committees are public access. The Florida Channel, you can get on your regular cable outlet. It's usually operated by your state or local channels, by PBS affiliates, or your public access, educational, or governmental access channels. Or you can just go to thefloridachannel.org, and you can watch nonstop 24/7 to watch the feed. I don't know you want to do that. You can just click on at that website, and you can watch the Florida channel. You can watch what's happening in these committees. And also you watch on your phone. You just download the mobile app or Android onto your Android device through iTunes Store or Google, and you can watch the Florida channel there as well. Bills, like I said, have been being drafted and have been put in for some time now. And there's going to be hundreds and hundreds of them. This one, my eye. This is Weather Modification Activity, Senate Bill 56. And I caught my eye because, and believe me, I don't know that this has gone into committee yet. But you can track it. It's Senate Bill 56. You go to that Senate page and you can put Senate Bill 56. You can read it. That's what it looks like in the white. This bill is like, it's this idea that hurricanes are being quickly created. And so, I don't know how far this is going to go. But again, many of these bills don't get past committee. And I think right there is a good example of maybe not going through. Here's another one. We have a new president, and the regulation of presidential libraries is a new HB. Now, this is a House Bill 69. I don't know if it has a companion, but you can look. You can go right to the House page and check. Under this bill, local governments would be blocked from regulating construction and even operation of a presidential library for President-elect Donald Trump and any other president who might plan such facilities in Florida. Again, here is what we call a preemptive bill. This is taking power from local government and local administrations and making it a state law and taking that control from local, away from local, and giving it to the state. And we call those preemptive laws. Here's an example, and this one, of course, is one that's important to me. And this is what it looks like. When you go to those sites, this is what you're going to see. This is HB 15. It's filed by Representative Hinson. And it is one that's regarding firearm storage. Under this bill, owners would not be allowed to store a handgun regardless of whether it's loaded in their cars unless it's out of view and properly secured, such as through being locked in a trunk or a glove box. In addition, HB 15 requires each county in the state to adopt an ordinance that would sanction parents whose underage children are discovered stealing a handgun. And there are the sanctions. The sanctions are spelled out. It's education classes, community service, it's no jail time. But here you also see there is a Senate bill companion. And it is filed by Senator Rousen. So you can see that they will be the same, and they'll be hopefully moving through committees in the House and in the Senate, and hopefully reach the floor when regular session begins. So this one is the special session. So what happened is this is session B, because they shut down session A pretty quickly and then started their own session. And that's why it's HB 1B and Senate Bill 2B. This is called the Tracking and Reforming Unlawful Immigration Policy Act, and it passed in the House 82-30 and passed in the Senate 21-16, and of course that was kind of through party line. It gives mandatory death sentences for any undocumented immigrant convicted of a capital offense, reclassifies criminal penalties when a deported individual returns to Florida and commits a crime. It makes Agricultural Commissioner Wilton Simpson the state's new chief immigration officer to work with the federal government. And this is a big problem for the governor. He wants he does not want to give that control to Commissioner Simpson or that agency. He wants to keep that with him. It sets aside $500 million from general fund for law enforcement agencies, and it eliminates a state law that offers students living in the country illegally in-state tuition at Florida public universities. These are the dreamers. These are the children that were brought here by their parents. They know nothing else. They've been raised here. And these are what we call the dreamers. So it will be taking state tuition from them. So what can we do to advocate for legislation? First, you have to identify your local legislators, of course. You need to know who they are. You need to contact them directly through calls, emails, letters. Testify at these committee hearings. If you have access to get to Tallahassee, you can go into any of these hearings and they give you a card and you can speak. And it is public record that you oppose or you support the bill. You mobilize grassroots support by encouraging others to reach out to their representatives. Stay informed. I just showed you different ways that you can stay informed about relevant bills that are important to you and your family. Consider engaging with legislative staff to discuss your concerns. They have home offices and you can call and set up an appointment. You don't even have to at any time during the year. And you can information about your legislators and track those bills as said at the Florida Senate and the House websites. This is my to-do list, so I'm going to share it with you as well. I have a right to clean water petition that I'm working on, and I think that's important. I think it's a right that we all should have. Florida Decides Healthcare petition. It's also to cover eligible low-income adults. Florida vote by mail. Everybody was busted off of the rolls at your supervisor of elections. Every vote by mail has been, so you have to reapply for vote by mail because you don't have it anymore after December 31st. I'm going to track and learn about bills as they progress through the committees. I'm going to contact my legislators. I'm going to email them. I'm going to phone them. I'm going to send postcards to them. I'm going to send letters to them. And I'm going to volunteer. So these are the to-do lists that I have. Tally, that's something. Okay, so how do you, when you call and you, by phone, important that you mention the bill. They are hearing hundreds of bills. You say, hi, this message is for Senator so-and-so. My name is so-and-so, and I live in Citrus County or whatever county. I'm calling about Senate bill, et cetera, et cetera. These are old, but it doesn't matter. I know that Senator so-and-so sits on a committee that will be hearing these bills on Tuesday. I'm opposed to this preemptive and overreaching bill and say why. Very brief. I urge Senator so-and-so to vote no. Thank you for taking my call. That's it. It's as easy as that. You can, and I would suggest you know how you have your best friend's contact information? Put your senator and your House of Representative, put their numbers in your contact list and just hit it. How do you do via email? Same thing, just in the title line, you're going to want to put I oppose or I support and put your number and your there. This was going to Senator Hudson in a so this Logan, you need to mute yourself, please. So this bill will avoid any local government law, ordinance, or regulation policy. So you're going to say, describe what the bill is, because sometimes you're the educator. You have to tell them. They have so many bills on their plate. And explain why it would hurt you, your family, your locale, your neighborhood. And then you write your name and the zip code. They want to know you're a Florida resident.
Let's throw them around, baby.
I know. I think it's okay.
And
Okay.
yeah, so Rosemary, you can take questions now.
Sorry, I forgot that I was muted. Okay, the first question came from me. Imagine that. When you were explaining that, yeah, you had that graphic of how a bill goes through each step, and you know, if the Senate has a bill, let's say, use your example, say firearm storage, but the House has maybe something similar, but not really, you know, like different language. What is the process? Because don't they have to make it match identically?
They will when it gets, they know they have to make it match.
Right.
So that they will work on that, and ultimately they may merge a House wording and put it into a Senate bill. And so when it gets to the floor, it's just a Senate bill. So sometimes they do merge language into one bill. And that's why when it gets to the floor, it may just be SB, or it may not be HB 15. It might be Senate Bill 190. So they merge it.
Okay.
If they want to get it passed, they will merge the language.
I was just trying to imagine, do we have smoke-filled rooms getting that done? Or, you know, does it, you know, is it just like a few members from each house or each chamber get together and pound out the language? Or do they?
No, it's done in committee. You can hear them. You can hear them talk about getting it square, because they will say, okay, we're going to work on that, and then we will.
My scrap meat, so I'm gonna take it out to the compost.
Okay.
I wasn't going to, I can't do this way.
Please mute, Ellen.
And that's,
Please mute, Ellen.
the conversation, but it's okay if I miss a little bit.
Alan, you need to mute. Any other questions, Rosemary?
Yes, there's another question from Paula, and I imagine it came from when you mentioned that you would be working on the petition for clean and healthy waters, and she said, wasn't there already one? So I know I have a similar question,
Yes.
so yes, so can you start from the beginning there? And I see Maxine is also on the call, maybe after your answer, if she has anything to add.
Sure. We had the director, Joseph Bassanio, spoke with us Saturday, and he said, and that question came up there as well, and he is the organizer and director of this petition. And he said, if you, this is a new one that was approved March of 2024. So this is a new clean water petition. So if the old one did not get enough signatures, so they've started anew. And they do not have any paid gatherers. So this is a total do-it-yourself grassroots petition drive.
Wait a minute, who is it? Paula, has that answered your question? Do you want to unmute and, you know, further clarify if you need to? Are you okay with that? I know that I had a question about.
Excuse me, Rosemary, may I just add something on that before you go on to something else? I understand this time that Sierra members are allowed to personally do this and handle several petitions and help out with this. And then if they're tabling, they can do it at their table, wherever they're tabling. So this is something different. Last time they couldn't. So that, I think that will help.
I agree.
I don't know Audubon's position on it, though. I'm still trying to find that out.
And I know that I had been concerned because I had signed one, don't remember if it was last year, the year before, and I had taken it to some friends, and they always know that I'm going to bring them petitions.
This is new.
So
Just
it has
think,
to be,
did
okay.
I sign anything this past summer? If you didn't, if it was before this summer, it was an old one. This is a brand new petition that was approved on March.
Okay, that's
So kind of in your mind, you can see that time frame. Yeah.
a good way to put it.
Don't they have until 2026 on this one? Did Joe
Yes.
Bonaccio tell you? I
Yes.
forget what the exact date is. Is it in the fall or something?
Yeah, he mentioned it, but I didn't write it down. But you can go to the email address, clean water. Well, just put in Florida Clean Water and you Google it, and he has a site where. And I just printed off a whole lot of them of the petitions and took them to a meeting. Just handed a whole load of them in.
Yeah, right to clean water. Just Google right to clean water.
Yeah, just
Florida.
Water, absolutely. Yeah, and I take them to UU in Citrus.
Now, I know there's another one for Medicaid expansion.
Yeah,
And is the timeline the same for that? If we signed that in the past, do we have to sign it? Is that a start all over? Or is that a new one? Or is
that one again. I had 3 signed on Monday night. You have to go to their site and get their petition, but this started probably about March as well. I don't know when it started specifically, but this is a new one as well. This is one that one you're going to have to check on because it's been a while since I've spoken with them.
And I think after what happened this past summer, when Amendment 4 was already on the ballot, had been approved by the Supreme Court, had been approved by supervisors of elections, and all the names were already good to go. And then the governor started finding or saying that he found issues with some of the signatures. And when you sign that, you also have to swear that you haven't knowingly signed it previously. So, one per person, of course. And I think that could be a little off-putting to some people because I don't want to get in trouble.
You're not going to get in trouble. Because remember, these are all checked through VAN. They're all checked to see if you're a qualified voter in the state of Florida. And they, before they even are turned in, they're checked at the hub. But so, and there's no consequence. What the fraud that the governor is talking about are the paid gatherers. He is targeting the paid gatherers. We have no paid gatherers on either one of these petitions. These are just gathering. And by the way, SB 18 and House Bill 21A, it died in committee. And it is the petition process bill that he wanted to pass that would eliminate paid petition gatherers. And the voter would have to request a ballot form to be mailed to them by the SOE, and that they would have to mail it back or drop it off to the SOE. It would get rid of gatherers altogether. It died in committee, so it won't go to the floor. So there is another example of how important it is, these committees. It died, and it says right on the site, if you go, it says died in fiscal policy committee. So the gathering, you're going to have to go to the sites and get the information. But they are important.
Exactly. We do have another question. Who do we contact to find the Medicaid petition? I do believe our league has some of these. I know I have a few. And if anyone is coming to our meeting on Wednesday, the 12th, for Black History Month with Dr. BJ Izell, we will have some. Maxine, I don't know if you were going to bring some of the clean water, but one of our other members said that she would. So, and we can find it online, I think, too.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, there, I just don't remember the name. It's a health concern.
Yes, I'm gonna look. If I find the name of the website to get it from, I'm going to type it into the box.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any
Right.
more questions about petitions? Because then we're gonna go back to the legislation again. We have another question. Okay, and Peggy had commented that the end point is February 26th, and yes, we do start over. Okay, Mary Lynn has a question about back to when a bill is assigned to 3 committees. Do all 3 committees have to pass it on? And if
Yes.
one committee doesn't, will it die?
Yes. Yes. So if it has 3 committees that they have been given to, and it dies in the first committee, it does not go to the second committee. Boom, done. That's why these committees are so important and no one knows about them. They're called interim committees. And this is where bills die or live. And they aren't even given the bills unless the Senate president or the Speaker of the House give them to the committees. So this is where the action is happening. By the time it gets to the floor in March, these have all been through their hearings, their committee meetings, they're doing their research, they have testimony from citizens. This is the time, this is the action, this is when it's happening right now. Yeah. So.
Paula made a comment, thank you. Paula made a comment that she tracks the legislators as well as specific
Yes.
bills.
Yes, yes, you can.
I'd like to know a little more about how you're doing that.
You go to that tracker, you get your tracker account, and it asks you, you want to track a bill, or do you want to track a senator, or do you want to track a legislator? And you will be tracking bills that that senator or that legislator are putting out there and filing. You will track their bills. Yes, absolutely. There's so much to do on those sites. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that, that getting to know the site would be important for
Yes.
interested citizens. I know I've spent time on it and need to refresh, and that's why this is so good. Now, Kathy has a comment, and she said the leadership can pull a bill after it passes at least one committee and put it on the floor. So what she's saying is that if it makes it through one committee, then the leaders can say, we're bringing it to the floor.
Yeah, we have a supermajority, so that happens a lot. They may just assign it one committee. They want to fast track it. This is something the governor wants. Boom, boom, boom. Let's get it done. Hands washed. They can have a committee redo it and table it and totally redo it. Push that through. You saw there's legislative bills that go through created by committee. And yeah, there's all kinds of political and legislative shenanigans that go on. And again, supermajority, they can pretty much do whatever they want. Yeah.
Okay. Peggy has just given us something excellent in the chat. Thank you for being on top of this. this, Peggy. If you're looking, if you can see the chat, that would be great. I'll run through what she said. League of Women Voters of Florida, you know we're nonpartisan, but we do support issues. And the League of Women Voters of Florida is officially supporting both these citizen ballot initiatives. And the aim is to secure a spot on the 2026 ballot. The first initiative, Right to Clean and Healthy Waters, seeks to empower Floridians to better hold their government accountable when it comes to Florida's waters. This is crucial for protecting our environment and public health. So there's a website, or a link right on our chat that you can click that will take you. So don't leave the meeting before you click it if you're interested. The second initiative is called the Amendment to Provide Medicaid Coverage for Eligible Low-Income Adults. That aims to expand Medicaid coverage to low-income adults who are currently in the coverage gap. In other words, they make too much to qualify for Medicaid, but they can't afford to be in the markets for Obamacare, now I can't think of the name, Affordable Care Act. They can't afford that. They can't get that, but they can't get Medicaid. So they're what we call the working poor, and many of them are parents of children working 2 or 3 jobs. So this initiative could provide much needed health care access to thousands of Floridians. And again, there's a hot link to click to learn more about it. And this has been something that's going on for years. Florida has refused to expand and accept those federal funds. And she got this from the newsletter, the League of Women Voters, Florida Voter newsletter. Are there other questions? Hands up. Yes. And I'm typing in the website again because it's way up in the chat. Okay, and that's our official name for those of you who don't know, is LWV
Douglas Vine has his hand up.
I'm sorry, who?
Douglas Vine.
Okay, okay. Douglas, did you have a question? Do you want to unmute?
Hi, I think actually my daughter might have kicked the keyboard, but I did have a question. I know we covered the petition process, but you mentioned getting it approved. What is the process for getting a petition approved? And I also wanted to ask about how many times something could be brought back up to go through that process to go into committee if it doesn't get there the first time.
Okay, so a bill is filed, and then if it's okay with the Senate President or the Speaker of the House, they will hand it to committee. And if it doesn't make it through committee, it's done. No, it doesn't come back. I'm sorry. It always comes back the following session, this next year. Bills often are put out every single year. Open carry comes every year. It doesn't very seldom go through, it doesn't even get a first committee hearing, and it probably won't this year. Sometimes it will go to one, like the House open, and it will die in that committee. But once it's done, if it doesn't get through committee, it's done. It doesn't go to the floor. It has to wait for the next year. Petitions, the approval, I don't know the initial approval. As Joseph Pisano said, they were approved in March for this new petition. But I do know that ultimately, once you get the signatures, then it does go to a court that makes sure that the language is clear. And then once it clears there, then it can go on to the ballot.
Thank you, Deb. I know Peggy is on this call and Peggy, maybe you would want to unmute yourself because I know you're very familiar with the whole process and then it has to go through the Supreme Court and all that. Do you want to tell us some more?
Yeah, so a group decides to create a petition drive and they must have the language meet certain requirements from the get-go, just so it's understandable and there's a clear sponsor. But as the petitions are collected, the signatures must be validated by the supervisor of elections for whatever county the signer belongs to. And then after the validated petitions reach a threshold, then the Supreme Court decides if the language was clear or not. So a teeny bit backwards, but that process takes, for most petitions, at least a year. So starting now is good because the validation process would take place in 2026. It's only a year away. I mean, the validation would have to be final by February a year from now, and then the Supreme Court would rule on clarity of language by April.
It is backwards.
Kind of backwards.
Well, I just typed in another question that maybe Deb or Peggy might have the answer to. How likely, we're talking again about this petition process, which I understand to be when our legislators don't do what the voters need or the voters want, that is one of our few recourses to get petitions signed and put it on the ballot and let all the voters in the state decide it, with our 60%, which is a very high bar. But how likely is it that there's going to be another bill this session, even though the governor's proposal didn't get anywhere last week? Should we be worried that it's going to be proposed again?
Can you ever stop worrying in Florida?
And I would add too that not all states have this.
No, there are only 16 states with direct citizen initiative. And the problem isn't just, will the Supreme Court say the language is clear? Because, I mean, you bend over backwards before you write the petition to make sure it's like fourth grade English and very short. And so that's the honest job of the Supreme Court. Can the voter understand it? But as you know, something else happens later with citizen initiatives, which is the economic impact statement, which was supposed to be neutral, which was politicized this past year. So, it's still an important avenue, but we can't stop worrying. Sorry to say.
That's right. We have another question.
Energy.
Right. We have another question about this same thing, which is very interesting how many questions are about the citizen petition process.
I did my job really well about the legislature.
Yeah, you did. But it's clear that we value our ability and our right to sign petitions. So Mary Lynn asked, do the petition authors have a way to predict that the language is clear enough on the petition?
Honestly, they bend over backwards. So they reviewed all the past court cases and what happened in, this year. If it's going to get gamed, how can you know? But it's as clear as it can be. And the legislature is supposed to have clarity of language too, but they don't have the same hurdles. They don't have the impact statement and such. So the legislature has a little more freedom to get things on the ballot.
Yeah.
But those are amendments and, Deb's been talking about the bill's proper
Right. Right.
which are, I'm sure, rarely understandable on first reading.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you gotta hang in there.
Well, it's been a pleasure. I'm so glad you invited me, and I hope that you have some information you can use and take home with you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Vicky's going to put this on our website, which I typed in as, if you scroll back, lwvcitrus.org. So, you'll be able to find it, and hopefully we'll put that information out in other places too.